Welcome to a brand new episode of the Jampack Report today for May the 20th of 2020. Of course, my name is Samuel Adams, and this is a daily gaming news podcast meant to bring you the hottest news you need to know from around the industry. Hosted on YouTube and podcast services around the world 5 days a week, it is your one-stop shop for the hottest news you need to know. So if you enjoy the program, you like what you see, hit that subscribe button and keep coming back for more. However, today we are kicking things off with a follow-up story from a late-breaking news piece yesterday. The next Call of Duty is Black Ops Cold War, according to insider reports. As is typical with annual Call of Duty releases, this year's game has leaked ahead of an official announcement. While Activision has already confirmed a new COD is coming this year, it has not shared any details whatsoever. However, according to a tweet that has since been corroborated by Eurogamer, this year's game will be called Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, signaling both a return to the popular sub-series and a shift in naming convention for it. The name first appeared on Twitter by leaker Okami13, and Eurogamer has since reported it's heard the same news from its sources. This means that, much like 2019's Call of Duty Modern Warfare, developer Treyarch is going back to where Call of Duty Black Ops started. A stark change from the future-based warfare the Black Ops series traded in with its third and fourth installments. The Cold War setting has already been teased in Call of Duty Warzone, with reported plans for the Battle Royale to eventually reveal the game in its entirety. Players have found a Cold War spy plane by glitching through walls. The reveal might have tied into the ongoing mystery behind the many vault doors in Warzone currently. The original Call of Duty Black Ops was set in the 1960s and featured missions during the Vietnam War. It was a landmark release for Treyarch, with our Call of Duty Black Ops review scoring it a 9 out of 10, they say at GameSpot, and at the time, critic Chris Waters wrote, "Call of Duty Black Ops lives up to the top-notch pedigree that the series has earned, giving players an awesome new shooter to enjoy just in time for the holidays." Last year, Call of Duty Modern Warfare acted as a soft reboot to the 2007 Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, using returning characters and recontextualizing them in a story that acts as a pseudo-prequel to the original's events. Whether this will be the formula Treyarch follows to has yet to be seen. Personally, I'm hoping that's the case, but it looks like Black Ops Cold War is going to be this year's game. And personally, I hope that the title Call of Duty takes a bit of a backseat, because it seems to be a much more fluid Black Ops Cold War title. And of course, you will have people that abbreviate the name or shorten the name in the same way that we all know that Modern Warfare is a Call of Duty game. So first and foremost, this shows the power of the Black Ops brand, because if you think about Treyarch, you think about Black Ops, and on top of that, you also think about World at War, which could come back at some point in the future. And so if you think about Black Ops, you think first and foremost, in my opinion, about the Vietnam entry, the original Black Ops game, then you continue on to Black Ops 2. That's a game that holds a lot of nostalgia for a lot of fans that launched in 2012. Then if you think about Black Ops 3 and 4, you think about the future-based entries, you think about the high-speed gameplay, you think about the negatives that a lot of people associate with the newer Call of Duty games, and so it would be nice to get back to that boots-on-the-ground Vietnam/Cold War era style of gameplay. I'm a big fan of that. And of course, as somebody who is very much so into history and very much so a buff on the Vietnam War and that era surrounding it, I think that this would be a very interesting game. When you think about games, you think about Modern Warfare, you think about, of course, World War II, you think about World War I when it comes to Battlefield 1, but the Cold War has been largely unexplored, and that's one that I think could definitely be an interesting little romp, if you will. So we will see this year if it is going to be, in fact, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, but I do believe there's going to be some kind of announcement coming in the next few months, maybe even a couple of weeks from now, as we get closer to when E3 should have been. That's probably when we are going to be seeing a lot of reveals. But as the article does mention, keep an eye on Warzone, because it seems that Infinity Ward is going to be going the route of Fortnite, where they reveal what's coming next, and the Call of Duty name, the next big game, that's all going to be coming through Warzone, which is evolving from a Modern Warfare spinoff into kind of the unifying factor that brings together Treyarch, it brings together Sledgehammer, and it brings together Infinity Ward into one giant conglomeration. I'm sure that more maps will be announced later on for Warzone, but this is a game that is going to continue to grow and evolve well throughout the rest of the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One generation, and then of course it's likely going to be ported to the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X as well. Moving on to this Take-Two Interactive earnings call. Take-Two has hit record financials with in-game revenues up 34%. Grand Theft Auto 5, Red Dead Redemption 2, and NBA 2K20 all contributed to huge sales for Take-Two Interactive. The publishing company reported record fourth quarter net bookings of $729.4 million. That's up 49% compared to the same period from the prior year. Net bookings for the fiscal 2020 hit $2.99 billion, which is up from $2.93 billion in fiscal 2019. Take-Two emphasizes that COVID-19 related stay-at-home orders led to increased engagement and spending in its games. Take-Two's lineup of games were especially well positioned for success for players sheltering in place. GTA Online, Red Dead Online, and NBA 2K all have highly active online components. They also have deeply ingrained microtransaction-based business models, and players showed up to spend on those in-game items. Quote, recurrent consumer spending, as Take-Two calls in-game purchases, was up 34% for the publisher, in fiscal 2020, and those purchases accounted for 51% of its total net bookings. The company also reported annual earnings per share of $3.58. We go from the $2.99 billion, I want to say $2.99 there because I'm not a millionaire, but no, that wasn't the case. Now we're back in my price range where this is what I pay for a Big Mac. $3.58, which is up from $2.95 per share in fiscal 2019. Quote, our significantly better than expected fourth quarter results concluded another extraordinary year for Take-Two, during which we achieved numerous milestones, Take-Two Chief Executive Officer Strauss Zelnick said. That includes record net bookings of nearly $3 billion, as well as record digitally delivered net bookings from recurrent consumer spending, and earnings. Nearly all of our titles outperformed in the fourth quarter, including NBA 2K20, Grand Theft Auto Online and Grand Theft Auto 5, Red Dead Redemption 2, Borderlands 3, and Social Point's mobile games. Take-Two also revealed that GTA 5 had surpassed more than 130 million copies sold. Red Dead Redemption 2 surpassed 21 million copies sold. Survivor's guilt is another factor in play. Take-Two has to walk something of a fine line here. The law obligates Take-Two to share its positive financial results, but at the same time, more than 30 million Americans have filed first-time jobless claims since the middle of March. The economy is in a recession, and we can have an academic discussion about whether it's in a depression. So Take-Two also doesn't look like it's taking a victory lap while shouting, "Let them eat cake." To get out ahead of that, the publisher already announced that it's donating 5% of its net bookings, minus platform fees, from most of its biggest games. That money will go to COVID-19 related charities. Zelnick also opened his conference call with investors with condolences for anyone who has lost someone to the virus. Looking ahead for Take-Two, what is in the future? The company doesn't plan a lot of big new releases over the next 10 months, but it says that won't last forever. In fact, let's go ahead and move on to the next story, which kind of coincides with this one. They have 93 games planned to launch by March 2025, including ports to new platforms, and next gen has been discussed. Today, during Take-Two Interactive Software's financial conference call, Chief Executive Officer Strauss Zelnick talked about the next generation of consoles. Zelnick mentioned that a new generation of consoles is always an exciting time for the industry. Quote, our development teams are already taking their creative aspirations to new levels by finding ways to push the limits of this new technology. That being said, he also added that the speed of the transition can be unpredictable, particularly in a year affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The strategy for the current fiscal year until March 2021 is to bring the company's creative achievements to the largest possible audience, likely meaning that upcoming games before the next fiscal year will either focus on the current generation or be cross-generation. The aim is to deliver the highest quality title and give them optimal conditions to achieve success. On top of that, we learned from President Karl Slatoff that Take-Two has 93 games planned for release by fiscal year 2025. Of these, 63 are core gaming experiences, including 15 games that will launch on new platforms. 17 are mid-core or arcade-style experiences, and 13 are casual games. 47 are from existing franchises, while 46 are from new IP. 72 are planned for consoles, PC, and or streaming, including 7 that will also be coming to mobile, and 21 dedicated to mobile. 67 require to be purchased, while 26 are free to play. It is worth mentioning that Slatoff clarifies that not all games in development are likely to make it to release, while more will undoubtedly be added to the slate. So it's not going to give you a direct outline of what's going to be coming from Take-Two's catalog, but it does give you an idea of just how many games are being worked on at the current time. 93 planned releases. Now, of course, a lot of those are mobile games. A lot of those are never going to see the light of day, while right now people are having ideas that are going to be worked on over the course of the next 5 years. That is still undeniably a lot of games. The acquisition model that Take-Two tends to take with their catalog is unprecedented in terms of the scope and the reach that one single company can have. Take-Two is blowing my mind with how much they have turned around and really made an impact on the industry by essentially gobbling up all of these small little IP and really allowing them to find an audience of their own and to really allow them to have the funding they need to take stuff to new levels. And again, you are seeing the success of that by these record-breaking financials, of course amplified by the COVID-19 pandemic, but undeniably, in-game revenues up 34%, 51% of revenue is digital in-game spending. That is an insane figure to even read. But Take-Two is doing very well, and right now, I don't see any reason to make them the bad guy. So often, whenever a company is achieving and succeeding, it seems to be the go-to assumption that something has to be wrong, something has to be not on the up and up, and it seems like everything is good in the world of Take-Two. Of course, I'm sure there are some qualms here and there, but ultimately, the company is doing well in creating experiences that are really, really well received. But overall, I do believe this is going to continue to elevate and this is going to continue to expand. But Take-Two, again, has parent company to many significant many significant developers, is something that is going to be making waves in the coming years. But System Shock 3 developer confirms Tencent will be taking the franchise forward. This is a follow-up story from yesterday's episode, which did cover the fact that it seemed like System Shock 3 had been transferred over to Tencent. Publishing giant Tencent will be taking the System Shock franchise forward, System Shock 3 developer Otherside Entertainment announced today. The studio confirmed the news on its site and social media channels. As a smaller indie studio, it had been challenging for us to carry the project on our own, the announcement adds. We believe Tencent's deep capabilities and expertise as a leading game company will bring the franchise to new heights. As our sister site, PC Gamer, reported, they say at Games Radar, Tencent has been rumored to be the new publisher of System Shock 3 ever since some web domains were transferred to the company. However, Tencent's role in the development and distribution of System Shock 3, not to mention the rest of the franchise, remains unclear. Otherside's announcement was vague, only specifying that Tencent will take the franchise forward. Many assumed this was to mean a total buyout, but Night Dive Studio CEO Stephen Kick confirmed on Twitter that Night Dive still owned the System Shock franchise and the IP itself. Night Dive has yet to mention Tencent's move on any of its channels, so for now it seemingly won't affect System Shock 2 Enhanced, which is currently developing. We have reached out to Tencent, they say Games Radar, Otherside, and Night Dive for clarification, and we will update the story if we hear back. For now, it is reasonable to assume that Tencent has acquired a stake in Otherside, which could be a massive boon for System Shock 3, a game that has struggled with repeated layoffs for years. They should say a developer that has struggled with layoffs in recent years. But ultimately, this is something that was received with vitriol on social media, as many announcements tend to be. So, Tencent is not viewed favorably in the majority of the gaming community's eyes, I suppose. If you look at the company itself, it has an acquisition-based approach, and they're kind of a monopoly, but not quite a monopoly. They have a lot of stake in a lot of various industries, but gaming especially is a big part of Tencent's business model. They just really enjoy getting themselves into and ingraining themselves in the gaming space. And so System Shock 3, again, sort of a precursor to BioShock in a way. It was the inspiration for the game to begin with. You begin to see this game see development, and you see a demo released, and then it just gets stuck in development hell. Tencent is investing money in making the project actually happen, which is going to be good in the long run, but at what cost, many gamers may say. Tencent is, again, not the most favorably viewed company in the world. Personally, I have no trouble with Tencent. I think that as long as there are regulations in place to keep them from becoming a monopoly, then that is all well and good. You can expand your company to its highest potential, but it is a bit worrisome to see just how big Tencent is actually getting and how many franchises they have their fingers on. But Night Dive still owns the IP, at least for right now. Would not be surprised to see an update on that story later on in the week. But CD Projekt is now Europe's most valuable game company, ahead of Ubisoft. That's insane. CD Projekt has become Europe's most valuable video game company with a market capitalization of $8.13 billion. The Polish firm behind The Witcher games and Cyberpunk 2077, as well as PC digital distribution platform GOG, has seen its value swell in recent months. CD Projekt's market capitalization was $6.8 billion in 2019, when Bloomberg said the company had posted a return of 21,000% over the previous decade, comfortably the biggest rise of any stock then listed on the Stoxx Europe 600 index. The company has surpassed European games industry heavyweight Ubisoft's current market valuation of $8.12 billion. By way of comparison, Rockstar owner Take-Two's market valuation is $16.13 billion, FIFA and Madden creator Electronic Arts is $34.34 billion, Mario Maker Nintendo's is $53.73 billion, and Call of Duty owner Activision Blizzard is $56.27 billion. Other companies with gaming arms have larger market valuations, including Microsoft, Sony, and Tencent, but their businesses are more diversified than those of the publishers listed above. Following a switch to remote working, CD Projekt President Adam Kaczynski said in April that the company remains on track to hit this September's delayed Cyberpunk 2077 release date for current-gen consoles and PC. CD Projekt also intends to release a proper full-blown next-gen version of Cyberpunk 2077 for Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, but it won't be a launch game. The company will work on a new Witcher game after Cyberpunk 2077 is completed, Kaczynski said in March. The most recent series entry, Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, celebrated its 5th birthday on May the 19th, and they have said the game has sold almost 30 million copies to date, with 6 million of those being sold in 2019 when the game debuted on Switch, and the Netflix series was also released. This is insane, because if you look again, CD Projekt is worth $8.13 billion. Not, again, on the same level as something like an EA, a Nintendo, Activision Blizzard, none of those, but that is still a chunk of change. And if you think about CD Projekt Red, the games that have come out to date have been fine, they've been good, but they really hit their stride with The Witcher 2, I believe it was Assassin of Kings, and then The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt really took the company and elevated it to a different status. Then you see the gameplay and the trailers for Cyberpunk 2077, and you know that that's just going to continue to amplify time after time. It's something that is very interesting and a story that is going to be watched very closely as we get closer to that September 2020 release date timeframe for CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077. But if you do want to play, I would recommend diving into The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Very fun game. It's out on the PS4, the Xbox One, the PC, the Switch, if you do want to dive in and give it a shot. But congrats to the team. They're doing some fine work. Now, this is a story that started to spring up a couple of days back, and I did want to share it here because Gears of War 3 on the PlayStation 3 was a test according to Epic. There has never been a Gears of War game on a PlayStation console, so the recent appearance of Gears of War 3 footage running on a PS3 has understandably been a surprise. Early footage of Epic's 2011 shooter running on PS3 developer hardware was posted to YouTube this month by a self-proclaimed former hacker Pixel Butts, according to Kotaku. Quote, as far as I know, I'm also the only person with a working build of this particular data as well, Pixelbutts wrote in the notes under his YouTube upload today. I don't know why it exists, I don't know why it was made, all I can do is speculate. The majority of the game is playable, save for 2 levels which reliably bug out. Performance is decent, though the game appears to have trouble rendering character Anya's floaty hair. Digging into the PS3 version's mysterious origins, Kotaku heard the build originated from developer Epic and was obtained in a hack of the company's servers in 2011. But why was it made by Epic in the first place? Was the Xbox console exclusive series once destined for PlayStation before Microsoft snapped up the franchise itself? In a word, no. Quote, the footage is a byproduct of Epic's internal Unreal Engine 3 testing process, which utilized both Gears and Unreal Tournament, an Epic spokesperson told Kotaku, and was never part of any actual product work for PlayStation 3. So here is how it looked in action, and again, you have 8 hours and 20 minutes of footage of Gears of War 3 running on a PlayStation 3. And so, interesting concept to say the least, to think about an Xbox exclusive being included as part of the PlayStation library. That would be strange in and of itself, to say the least, but it looks like it was running reliably pretty well, all things considered. I mean, whenever you look at a PlayStation 3 game, you have to lower your expectations just a tad, but all things considered, still a little piece of gaming history that has surfaced in the past couple of days. And I think that's the biggest point to take away from this, is that this is a large chunk of gaming history. This entire era from the Xbox 360 to the PlayStation 3 is incredibly intriguing just because of how many games came out and how many successful IP were formed and how many giant revolutionary games were released that have maintained their status as industry shifting events. And Gears of War is certainly one of those entries. But Gears of War 3 on PS3 was real, but was never destined for release. But if you are in the mood for some PlayStation hardware, first and foremost, would highly recommend waiting until the PlayStation 5 comes out. But if you happen to be a collector, or you want a collector's edition, Sony's Last of Us Part 2 limited edition PS4 Pro and controller bundle has arrived. And you can also get the controller, or a gold wireless headset, or just the console as well. Should you suddenly discover a yearning void within your being when you finally sit down to play The Last of Us Part 2 in June, one that can only be satisfied by playing The Last of Us Part 2 on a specially branded Last of Us Part 2 PlayStation 4 Pro and controller, then Sony is here to help, because it just announced these things. The newly revealed Last of Us Part 2 PlayStation 4 Pro bundle is a limited edition affair and will launch alongside the game on the 19th of June. Its shimmering centerpiece is the customized PS4 Pro, which features a matte finish and comes engraved with Ellie's distinctive fern tattoo. The motif is carried over to the accompanying DualShock 4 wireless controller, which features a truncated version of the fern design on its lower right-hand side. Adding the final touches are white detailing in the game's logo, slapped prominently upon the touchpad. In addition to the hardware, Sony's limited edition bundle features a code for various bits of digital content, such as a Last of Us Part 2 dynamic PS4 theme and avatar selection, and you'll perhaps be relieved to hear a physical copy of the game is included as well. Away from the bundle, Sony is promoting 2 extra bits of similar themed hardware. There is a steel black matte wireless headset emblazoned with Ellie's fern squiggle, and an officially licensed Last of Us Part 2 Seagate 2TB game drive, which features the same botanical flourish alongside a gargantuan Last of Us Part 2 logo, obliterating any pretense at subtlety. A glance around the internet suggests the PS4 Pro bundle will cost around £349 in the UK, while the controller can be purchased separately for £49. The wireless headset is £77, and the Seagate hard drive does not yet appear to be available. Is it pounds or euros? I always get no, euros is the one that looks like an E. I did say pounds. Ha! Nailed it. But regardless, here is the PS4 if you did want to check it out. You can find them all on the PlayStation blog, both the European and the American version. But there is your controller, there is your headset, and there is the console in and of itself. Must admit, I love the embossed version. Whenever you have a stencil or a graphic that's just printed on the side of it, it's nice, but it's not quite as nice as having something that you can feel, a textured front. And I love that. But again, would not recommend buying a PS4 Pro of any kind, collector's edition or otherwise, because this holiday we're going to be getting more powerful hardware, and then it's not going to be so nice whenever you're playing a very fancy PS4 Pro while a console that is multiple times more powerful than it is roughly the same price, give or take. But regardless, that rounds out today's episode of the Jampack Report. If you enjoyed this one, drop me a like down below and let me know what you think about today's show and everything we discussed. And on top of that, will you be getting a limited edition PS4 Pro with the PS5 just coming out in a few months? I would love to see your thoughts on that move as well as everything else we talked about today. But until tomorrow, you guys have a fantastic rest of your night. I will talk to you soon, and peace.